What if the last thing you did before going to sleep was forget to close the garage door? Just one small oversight, one tired moment, one assumption that tonight would be like any other night. By morning, that simple mistake would cost 3 innocent lives and launch a 34-year investigation that would revolutionize how America solves cold cases. If you're fascinated by cases where cutting-edge DNA technology finally brought a ghost to justice, hit that like button right now, share this with someone who loves true crime, and subscribe to Crime Vault Files, because every week we unlock the cases that refused to stay buried. January 15th, 1984. Aurora, Colorado, a growing suburb on the eastern edge of the Denver metropolitan area, where cookie-cutter homes lined quiet streets and young families planted roots in freshly sodded yards. Inside the 2-story home at 16750 East Center Drive, the Harrison family home was filled with warmth. It was Sarah's birthday. She was turning 8 years old in just a few days. But tonight, Sunday evening, the real celebration happened right here in their modest living room, surrounded by the people who loved her most. Michael Harrison, 27 years old, sat at the kitchen table. Navy veteran, former sonar analyst stationed at Pearl Harbor, now studying nights and weekends at Metropolitan State College to become an air traffic controller. A man building a future brick by brick. Jennifer Harrison, 26, moved between the kitchen and dining room with practiced ease. She'd lost her mother young in Greeley and learned early what it meant to hold a family together. Strong, steady, the backbone of their small furniture business on East Colfax Avenue. Their daughters, Sarah, 7, vibrant with energy that filled every corner of their 1,500-square-foot home. And Emma, just 3 years old, still young enough to believe the world was entirely safe. Michael's mother, Margaret Harrison, had driven over from her home in the Montbello neighborhood. So had Michael's brothers, Thomas and David. Someone had given Sarah a small electronic keyboard as an early gift, and she played it in the living room the way 7-year-olds play everything, badly, loudly, with pure delight. The birthday cake sat on the kitchen counter. Candles glowed. Laughter echoed through every room. Then slowly, as the clock approached 9 p.m., the evening wound down. Coats came on. Hugs were exchanged. One by one, family members stepped out into the freezing January night. But before he left, Thomas paused at the front door. He glanced back toward the 2-car attached garage. The garage door was still open, wide open to the Colorado winter night. He said it out loud. "Hey, Mike, make sure you close that before bed." Michael nodded, distracted. "Yeah, I got it." Then the warmth of the house pulled him back inside. Sarah needed help carrying presents upstairs. Emma needed tucking in. The night was long. And the garage door, just this once, slipped his mind completely. Outside, yellow light from the open garage stretched across the snow-covered driveway like an invitation. Silent, completely open to the frigid night air, the house went dark, room by room. Michael and Jennifer settled into their master bedroom. Sarah drifted off in one of the twin beds, probably still humming the birthday song. Emma curled up beneath her Holly Hobby comforter, wrapped in the kind of deep sleep that only belongs to children who've never known fear. But something was already moving through that silence. A figure, patient, unhurried, moving through the streets of Aurora's southeast corridor, scanning houses in the subdivision, looking for vulnerability, looking for easy entry, not rushed, not emotional, just hunting with methodical precision. And then, as he moved through the intersection of East Center Drive and South Cathay Court, he saw it. That yellow rectangle in the snow at 16750 East Center Drive. He didn't break anything, didn't force anything. He simply walked through that open garage door into the darkness of the Harrison family home. And everything changed forever. Monday morning, January 16th, 1984. The phones at Harrison Family Furniture on East Colfax Avenue started ringing at 7:45 a.m. The store was supposed to open at 8. Michael and Jennifer were always there by 7:30. By 8:30, the assistant manager was calling the house. No answer. By 9:45, calls were going to Margaret Harrison. Margaret didn't wait for more information. She knew something was wrong the way mothers know, deep, wordless, with absolute certainty. She got in her 1979 Buick and drove. At 10:08 a.m., she turned onto East Center Drive. The garage door was still open, in broad daylight, in 20-degree weather. She walked through the open garage, past both family vehicles. She pushed open the door leading into the house, the laundry room entrance. The silence hit her first. Not peaceful silence, the wrong kind. She moved through the kitchen toward the stairs, and that's when she saw him. At the bottom of the carpeted staircase lay her son. Her brain refused what her eyes were showing her. Margaret screamed, a sound that came from somewhere primal. She ran across the snow-covered lawn to the neighbor's house and hammered on the door. "Call 911! Call 911! Right now!" The 911 call came in at 10:28 a.m. By 10:36, the first patrol units arrived. Margaret was standing on the front lawn, no longer screaming. What remained was worse. A blank, hollow stillness. Michael Harrison was at the bottom of the staircase, the victim of devastating blunt force trauma. Blood spatter on the beige walls. Clumps of dark hair scattered on the carpeted stairs. Bloodied handprints dragged up the oak banister. A man trying to pull himself up, trying to get back to his family. He just couldn't get there. The master bedroom was at the top of the stairs, first door on the right. Jennifer Harrison was on the floor at the foot of the bed. The room had been ransacked. Dresser drawers yanked open, clothes thrown everywhere, a wallet dumped with its contents scattered. Someone had torn through looking for cash. Jennifer had been assaulted in the most horrific way before her life was taken. Detective Raymond Cooper, first detective on scene from Aurora PD's Major Crimes Unit, had to turn his back to that room. Stood in the doorway, jaw clenched tight, staring at the wall. Took 3 deep breaths. Then he kept working. Because that was the job. The door to the girls' room was last. Sarah Harrison was on the carpet between 2 small twin beds. 7 years old. A pink blanket had been laid across her face. Her small right hand was raised defensively. Clear evidence she'd tried to protect herself until the very end. A 7-year-old girl fighting back against a monster in the dark. It wasn't enough. The other twin bed was soaked through with blood. Detective Cooper felt his throat constrict. He was about to call for the coroner when Fire Captain Luis Mendez held up his hand. "Wait, I hear something." Everyone froze, a sound, faint, breathing, shallow, labored. Captain Mendez moved toward the narrow gap between the blood-soaked bed and the wall. He crouched low. There, pressed into that small dark space barely 8 inches wide, was Emma Harrison. 3 years old. Her blonde hair matted with blood, eyes closed, barely breathing, but alive. Emma arrived at Children's Hospital Colorado at 11:18 a.m. The doctors used the word miracle. Emma had sustained catastrophic head trauma, skull fractures, brain swelling. She'd lost nearly 40% of her blood volume. The trauma team needed multiple transfusions just to stabilize her. She slipped into a coma before they'd finished the initial assessment. Margaret Harrison, the woman who had just found her son's body, sat in the ICU waiting room and prayed for the one who was still breathing. And somehow, against every medical prediction, Emma Harrison held on. Back at East Center Drive, investigators worked through the afternoon. Bloody boot prints tracked across the floors. All the same shoe, a Vibram sole hiking boot, men's size 10. Moving from the garage through the house, up the stairs, into each bedroom, back down and out. Those prints belonged to no one who'd been at that birthday party. Outside, in the snow-covered backyard, investigators found a kitchen knife. 8-inch blade, wooden handle, blood on the blade. It matched the knife block inside. The attacker had taken it from the Harrisons' own kitchen, used their own knife against them, then discarded it in the snow. The hammer was gone. The attacker had brought it with him and walked it back out. This wasn't someone who'd lost control. This was someone who'd come prepared. Someone who'd planned his attack and planned his exit. This was someone who'd done this before. DNA evidence was collected from multiple locations. Biological samples from the carpet beneath Sarah's body, from the comforter on Emma's bed, from Jennifer's body. The samples were carefully packaged and transported to the Colorado Bureau of Investigation's forensic laboratory in Lakewood. But when the samples reached the lab, the answer was devastating. Blood type, type O positive. That's all we can determine. Type O positive, shared by 38% of the population. It told them almost nothing useful. So the samples were sealed, stored, and filed away with a note. Hold for future analysis when technology advances. And the man who'd walked out through that garage was already gone. No name, no face. Just boot prints in the snow that disappeared at the pavement. The Harrison family was not the first. By the time Michael, Jennifer, and Sarah were killed, this man had already done this. Multiple times, to multiple families across Denver, and nobody had connected the cases yet. 12 days earlier, January 4th, 1984. Robert and Lisa Thompson went to bed like any other night at their home on East Mississippi Avenue in Aurora's Heather Gardens subdivision. Their garage door had been left open. Somewhere between 2 and 3 a.m., Lisa woke to explosive pain. Something had struck her in the head. She caught the briefest glimpse, a silhouette standing over her, before she screamed. Robert came awake and was met with a hammer blow to the skull. The impact fractured his skull. The attacker fled. Both survived. Lisa's purse had been emptied of $63. Boot prints in the snow led to the pavement and disappeared. Aurora police filed the report as attempted burglary and assault. Then the case went into a filing cabinet. 6 days later, January 10th, Lakewood, Colorado. Catherine Williams was 50 years old, a bookkeeper who'd moved from Grand Island, Nebraska, to help her daughter Kelly settle into a new townhouse on West 10th Avenue. That Thursday, Catherine ran her normal errands and came home around 2 p.m. Kelly arrived home from work at 5:45. Catherine's lunch was still on the kitchen table, sandwich untouched, like she'd been interrupted and never came back. Kelly walked into the living room, and her life changed forever. Catherine Williams was on the floor between the couch and the coffee table. She'd been the victim of extreme blunt force trauma and personal violation. When it was over, her body had been covered with a child's Winnie the Pooh blanket, one that belonged to Kelly's son. The hammer was lying on the carpet. Her purse had been rifled. $47 missing. Catherine had simply come home to a townhouse where she'd left the garage door partially open. That same evening, Jessica Porter, 28, a flight attendant, pulled into her garage at her rental home on West Stanford Drive in Littleton after a long shift. She grabbed her overnight bag, stepped out of her car, one blow, right temple, hammer. She was down before her brain could process it. Her boyfriend, Stephen, came home the next morning, saw the blood trail leading from the garage into the bedroom. Jessica was lying on the bedspread in her uniform, barely breathing. She survived, but the head trauma had stolen something irreplaceable. She had no memory of the face. The injury had erased it permanently. A blood-soaked hammer sat on the driver's seat, her purse emptied of $82. By January 18th, investigators from 3 jurisdictions were comparing cases. Detective Cooper from Aurora, Detective Marcus Williams from Lakewood, Detective Sarah Chen from Littleton. They laid the files side by side. The pattern was undeniable. 4 attacks, 14 days, 3 cities, a hammer, open garage doors, personal violations, small amounts of cash, blankets covering bodies or scenes, the same boot, prints. They were hunting a serial predator. On January 24th, the FBI sent Special Agent Ronald Walker from Quantico. He reviewed everything and delivered his profile. You're looking for a white male, early to mid-20s. Limited formal education, but calculating, controlled. Likely works construction. He's an opportunist, driving through neighborhoods looking for open garages, unlocked doors. He's comfortable with extreme violence. He doesn't panic. This suggests prior experience, and this man will not stop, not until he is caught or dead. The community was fracturing. Hardware stores couldn't keep garage locks on shelves. Gun sales spiked. The Denver Post ran a headline, "Hammer Killer Terrorizes Metro Area." There were reports of families sleeping with helmets on. The level of fear was visceral and rational. Then suddenly, the attacks stopped. No more incidents, just silence. But Agent Walker's words hung in the air. This man will not stop. The silence meant he had moved. 11 days after the Harrison murders, Frank Martinez, 42, a trucker, was asleep in his home on Northern Avenue in Kingman, Arizona. Around 3:30 a.m., Frank woke to pain. A stranger stood over him with a river rock from Frank's garden, blow after blow. Through the pain, Frank asked, "Why? Why are you doing this to me?" The stranger stopped, stared down, then dropped the rock and walked out. Frank survived. 106 stitches, fractured skull, but alive, and Frank had seen the face. He gave police a description. Hours later, Mojave County Deputy Carl Hutchins spotted a man trying to hitchhike on Interstate 40. Early 20s, dark hair, hiking boots. Deputy Hutchins approached, asked to see the boot treads. The man bolted. Deputy Hutchins tackled him. The boot treads matched perfectly. The man's name was Derek Allen Morrison, 23 years old, born in Tucson, Air Force father, in and out of juvenile detention by 14, foster care at 16, walked away. By 1983, Derek was in Denver working day labor construction, sleeping in his truck along East Colfax in Aurora and Lakewood, the same neighborhoods. He was reading vulnerability, and those neighborhoods gave him everything he needed. Derek was convicted by February, sentenced to 8 years. On August 9th, during a prison transfer, the convoy stopped for gas in Henderson, Nevada. Derek asked to use the restroom. He squeezed through a window and ran. In a bright orange jumpsuit, he kept moving. That night, Christopher and Nancy Delgado were asleep in their home on Burton Street in Henderson. Nancy went downstairs at 2:40 a.m. to warm a bottle for their baby. She saw a man at the back door holding an axe handle from their shed. She ran. The glass shattered behind her. What happened in the bedroom was savage. Christopher's skull fractured in 3 places. Permanent brain damage. Nancy's hands shattered blocking strikes. She survived by playing. Dead. Derek stopped, set the axe handle on the table, walked out. 4 days later, Derek was found at a payphone near Lake Mead, dehydrated, sunburned. He tried to run. A ranger raised his weapon. "Stop, or I will shoot." Derek stopped. November 1984. Guilty on all counts. 110 years, the maximum. Derek Allen Morrison was processed into Nevada State Prison, inmate 66893, and then, as far as Colorado was concerned, Derek simply ceased to exist. His files in Nevada, the evidence in Colorado, 700 miles apart. Margaret Harrison attended every case review for 3 decades. Emma grew up with no memory of her family, therapy, surgery, rehabilitation, a jaw rebuilt, a skull healed outside while everything inside stayed broken. Derek sat in his cell, year after year, unremarkable, no infractions, until 2014 when he started parole paperwork. Until 2016 when he set up a profile on Write a Prisoner, convinced he was walking out. He had no idea science was closing in. In 1999, Colorado came back to the evidence with new techniques, 2 years of work. In 2001, they had it. A full DNA profile, complete, precise. They ran it through CODIS, the national database. No match. The profile knew who it belonged to, but the man wasn't in the system. 15 more years passed. Then, in 2016, investigators ran it again. This time, a connection. The DNA from the Harrison scene matched Catherine Williams' murder. 2 cases, 2 cities, 1 man. The files went to Parabon Nanolabs. Using only DNA, analysts built a physical description. A face emerged. After 32 years, they had a face, but still no name. That same year, Nevada passed a law requiring prison inmates to submit DNA for CODIS. It moved slowly, no deadline. Derek's sample was collected and bagged. Then it sat for 2 years. 2 more years while Margaret aged and Emma carried her scars. 2 years while Derek filled out parole forms and set up dating profiles. Then, 1 week after his DNA was finally entered, CODIS returned a result. A match. Perfect. Undeniable. The genetic fingerprint from Melissa's carpet had found its owner, 34 years, and then 1 week. July 10, 2018, 9:15 p.m. Detective Cooper got the call. "We got a CODIS hit on the Harrison case," from an inmate in Nevada, 1 week after entry. The name, Derek Morrison. Cooper went through every file from 34 years, thousands of pages. Derek Morrison had never appeared once. A man who destroyed a family and vanished so completely that decades of investigation never produced his name. Colorado detectives flew to Nevada. Didn't identify themselves as connected to murders, just routine conversation. Derek talked freely, mentioned construction work, in Aurora and Lakewood. He placed himself there, same city, same time, same work that made him invisible. Next day, they showed photographs, crime scenes, victims. Derek denied everything. Calm. Then they placed a photo of Catherine Williams, alive, smiling. He said he didn't know her. They placed another photo. Catherine, the way her daughter found her. The change in Derek was immediate. Something behind the eyes shifted. There must be some mistake. Then he asked for a lawyer, a court order secured. DNA swab taken directly from Derek. Perfect match. The DNA from Sarah's carpet, from Catherine's living room. Both matched Derek Allen Morrison completely. August 10, 2018. Investigators stood before cameras. They had their man. Colorado filed extradition. Derek's team fought for 16 months. Every appeal rejected. The Nevada Supreme Court turned him down. The U.S. Supreme Court turned away. August 2020. 36 years after he'd walked out of Aurora, Derek was placed on a plane under security and flown back to Colorado. He landed in the same city where Michael had studied for a future he never got, where Jennifer finally found her own home, where Sarah giggled after her birthday party, where Emma was found barely breathing and refused to let go. Formally charged, 4 counts of first-degree murder. For 34 years, he'd moved state to state, convinced distance and time would make it disappear. But Colorado never forgot. The trial began July 2021, 37 years after the birthday party. The prosecution laid out everything: DNA, profiles, connections, timeline, decades of evidence. Then Vanessa stood up. She was 40 years old, the 3-year-old found in the Gap. She looked at him and spoke. "I lost the person I was supposed to be. I lost my sanity. I look in the mirror every day and I hate who I am. I hate what I had to go through and still go through." Vanessa's life hadn't been simple. She'd relearned to walk, talk, move, surgery, therapy, raised by Margaret. But trauma doesn't undo with love alone. She struggled with addiction through her 20s, lost her son to the system, attempted to end her life. At 30, she decided she was done being destroyed, got clean, rebuilt, reconnected with her son, found a partner, began speaking about survival. "I tried to stop being a victim and turn it into empowering myself." She still lives with PTSD, paralysis, bipolar disorder, no memory of her family. But she's still standing. The jury deliberated 9 hours. August 6, 2021. Guilty on all 3 counts. 3 consecutive life sentences, no parole. The judge called it an abomination. Asked if Derek had anything to say. He looked up. "No, thank you." 2 words, that was it. In 2022, the trial for Catherine's murder concluded. Another guilty verdict. Another life sentence. 4 total. Margaret was there for all of it. Someone asked if she finally had closure. She thought, "It's not closure, but we've learned to live with it." There's a garage door at the center of this story, left open on a cold Sunday night by a man who was tired and had no reason to think it mattered. By morning, 3 people were dead. This isn't about garage doors. It's a reminder that ordinary moments carry weight we can't see, that the people we love deserve to be told today that safety is fragile and worth protecting. Michael never became an air traffic controller. Jennifer deserved more years. Sarah never got her real birthday party. And Emma, the survivor, is still here, still standing, still refusing to let darkness be the last word. She's the reason this story gets to end with something other than just grief. If this case moved you, like and share this video. Subscribe to Crime Vault Files for more investigations that refused to stay buried. Tell us in the comments, what does justice mean to you in a case like this? This is Crime Vault Files. The truth always surfaces. Eventually.